camera's decided not to focus on me necessarily, so I'm trying to make some harsh movements so it'll see me. Here, this is where I am. But we were just discussing Sting and Peter Gabriel. I was actually just listening. It's funny you say that, to the new Peter Gabriel song today, which I like.
I haven't heard it yet, but yeah, but
it's like I'm Amazing or something like that.
There's not much that Peter Gabriel does that isn't good, so I'll.
And the world music that he did is not good.
Yeah, I know.
Depends on your opinion, but yeah.
I mean, that's everybody's opinion. That's not just me.
Oh no, that's not everybody's opinion. No, I mean some of the world music was really good. I mean.
Yeah, I'm not. It's
like the Last Temptation of Christ is a.
Would you have gone and seen 2 hours just of that?
No, it's not necessarily my cup of tea.
Okay.
But I have listened many hours to the music from the Last Temptation of Christ, which is pretty awesome, and that's just classical world music. I've listened to that. I love that one.
Yeah, I think it was Peter. It was Peter doing his imitation of Paul Simon. It's like Paul Simon all of a sudden had to go and get a bunch of African musicians, and it's fine if that's what you want to do. You're an amazing musical performer. If you want to stretch the bounds of your.
I don't know who was imitating who there. Come to think of it, though, because that was pretty much.
Simon did it first. I'm pretty sure Simon did it first.
I don't know about that.
Simon did it first.
Well, I mean, let's listen, because Gabriel did do some, like with Biko and a couple other songs.
Yeah,
he had a lot of African influences, but
not like the whole getup.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah, and you know what? And I'm going to be nice here today too, and say that I've been listening to John Anderson, who's got a new album coming out on the 8th, and it's with some guy I never heard of, Stolt. I don't know who he is.
Okay.
At first, I thought it was like Eric Stoltz. I didn't know who it was.
I was going to say that. What is this, Mask? We're sharing Sam Elliott.
But it's pretty good, and it's got a good progressive sound to it. To me, he's an amazing guy because at his age, he is still producing new music when, like other bands like the Rolling Stones and other guys had just stopped making new music. Yeah. He's still creating.
Well, and this is the thing. I give somebody like John Anderson credit. I mean, because I believe he's 68 or 69.
Yeah, right around that, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw him a couple years ago, so he was like 66 or 67, and he had just had some sort of throat surgery.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything serious, but, and you go into the show expecting him not to be John Anderson anymore. And it was him and Rick Wakeman, and the show was phenomenal, and his voice wasn't as powerful as it was when he was younger, but it was still great. As opposed to, and I keep going back to this, but I have to, the last Genesis tour, I think it was 2007, when they had to change almost every song, it changed the key of every song because Phil Collins could not hit the high notes anymore. And to my point, it's like, you know what? I would have rather lived with the memory of seeing them in 1980 and not seen them then, because it was sort of not a waste, but it was just like, it was disappointing that they couldn't do the songs the way they should be done.
Sure, but when Anderson just went on tour with Jean-Luc Ponty, he did rearrange some of the crazy high stuff because, again, he can't do it the exact same way that he used to, and it still sounds really good, and his voice is definitely powerful still, but you just can't hold that for an entire tour.
But Ack would know this. It's like they changed the key of the song.
And the key of the song, I mean, there's some people who think that doesn't matter, but it really matters a lot. Like, honestly, the key of the song does change the feel of the song. There are certain keys that are certain feels to them, and people don't necessarily think of it. Now, that doesn't mean that, I think it's a perfectly logical thing to do as you get older, to change the keys of the songs down a little bit. The bigger problem with the keys of the song, though, that's kind of funky, you'll notice they change the keys of the song more often, and this is something I don't think people know unless they've actually done this or like had to put together set lists like I have. But you realize that the key you came out of matters a ton to where you're going. So you can make something that if you want to step a song down a couple of keys to be able to make it easier to sing or perform or what have you, it's all right as long as you're coming out of another key. Like, it depends on what key you're coming out of. If you come out of a key, that's certain keys to other keys are very weird transitions. It's just they feel very, very weird.
It's like downshifting in the middle of the autobahn.
Yeah, it can be so strange. I mean, and especially that's when you'll notice a key shift more than anything else. Like if someone brought a key down, you'll notice it then if they have done it that way.
So just so you know, this guitarist's name is Roine Stolt. He was from the Flower Kings. I've never heard of him, but he's teamed up with John Anderson. And this is like coming out now, and then in a couple of months, I'm going to basically see, Anderson, Wakeman, Rabin, which I'm really excited for because Trevor Rabin's basically come out of retirement and stopped being a dad for 10 minutes and stopped writing musical scores. But again, this guy's been so talented too. To me, I'm amazed that these people can still put out new music as they get older, and then some bands just stop. And look, people might hate it, right? They might say, I don't like it, but it's just creative, and it's nice.
There's a lot of reasons bands stop. Speaking from a person who's in a band that stopped for a while, and then also does start up again and does get together. And I'm working on a project right now with our guitarist for his 50th.
Okay.
I'm doing 2 songs with him right now that we were recording last week and have been writing together. And other people from our band are going to perform. I mean, for us stopping was about having a family, like you're talking about. It was about not traveling as much, and because it is a lot of work to travel and do the band thing around the country. But I think it depends on how you stop. Of course, anyone if you want to watch a good documentary, the Fleetwood Mac documentary is so amazing, where you can see now our band never had any of that kind of drama.
You didn't swap partners. You didn't.
No, that wasn't going on.
I haven't seen that documentary. Is it on Netflix or is it?
I think it's on Netflix.
Okay, I'll have to see because the one that I've seen recently.
Making of Rumors is what it is.
The one that I've seen recently that and I watched it over and over again after Glenn Frey passed away was the Eagles.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. It was
You don't strike me as the Mick Fleetwood of your band. I'll just say.
No. No.
It's crazy.
No, I envy Mick Fleetwood because he got with Stevie Nicks, and back then that was an accomplishment.
I was the designated driver of my band. Put it that way. I was pretty boring as far as things go.
So let's downshift from progressive rock buzz to hockey buzz.
Yeah, let's go to that. And also, you were saying though that I do want to check this out. So Sting and Peter Gabriel, they're doing a tour together, and
they're touring. It's really ridiculously expensive. That's the one bad
part. It
part.
is. It came to Philly, and I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it because I was at the draft.
Yeah, and I wanted to see that show, but the prices were a little ridiculous. And I mean, they're 2 artists that I like, and to see both of them interact with the other's songs was a cool concept. But I think most artists now who are touring, it's purely a money-making venture.
And there's not a lot of dates. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Not a lot of dates on that tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be. I'm still holding out hope for the Genesis reunion tour, and that's the only thing.
They're done, dude. They are done. That last one, the one thing I'll give Genesis credit for, when they said it was done and this was their last tour, it really was.
No, it was, but I know how close it got because I know
it definitely got close, but
and I think it could get close again. I mean, there's so much money to be made, and there's so much, and now that Phil's feeling better and everything, they should do something.
But the thing is, Phil can't drum anymore physically.
That's all right. I mean,
Chester Thompson can. I mean, he's a member.
You can completely get around that.
Yeah.
Drummers are the easiest, most replaceable thing in any band.
He was
he's a great drummer, but there's other good.
Hey, don't tell my buddy Alan White that, who was in the Plastic Ono band too. I don't want to hear it.
No, yeah. No, they are though. They are. They just are. All right, so let's move on.
Right, like bass players, they're replaceable.
No, bass players have more. There's more to a bass player.
Hey, how's it going, Eric?
Yeah, there's more to a bass player. I'll give bass players that much. There's more to them. And there's some great drummers too. But once the great drummers recorded an album, and anybody can play that drum part and be that drum, and because drums are very much more subjective, I guess, than they're more objective, I would say, musically, more mathematical.
It's like the engine of a lot of bands. That's really what it is.
Now, bass is tough. Good bass is the bad bass. There's plenty of that, but good bass is good.
Hi, I'm bad bass.
Yeah, no, bad bass players. That's you don't want to get into that. But when you get a good bass player, that's a hard thing to duplicate, just like a good guitarist or a good vocalist. All right, but they do a dance. You were saying Sting did Dance with the
Moonlit Night, the beginning of Dance with the Moonlit Night.
Yeah, that was my sound check song when I was in the band. I love that song. That's cool. It's very, very cool. All right, so let's move on to the show. Here we go. The date is. Bell. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, July 6th, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time and is brought to you by viewers like you on Patreon.com/hockey. And we are here today to give you all the comings and goings in the hockey world, and because we don't take vacation. You know, all these other hockey reporters, I'm reading their tweets, they're heading up to their cabins.
Nothing will get me out of my cabin. That's what I keep hearing.
That's right. I know, it's sad, isn't it? I mean, honestly, I think it's a little early to take vacation if you're a hockey writer. I
wouldn't want to go someplace where there's not Wi-Fi.
Right. I mean, we aren't teachers, you know. It's not like we get the whole summer off. I mean, it's not like we have that hard of a life. I mean, to me, it's not. I don't know. That's kind of a strange thing, but that's all right. But yeah, but we don't do that. We're still here talking rumors and talking all sorts of things. And the player I wanted to get into today, a little Russian guy who you might remember from the World Championships. Actually, he was sort of made his name, and that would be Vladimir Shipachyov. Shipachyov. Thank you. Why can't I say Russian names? Vadim Shipachyov. I apologize. I was looking at my notes. I started that before, too early. I knew I did it. Vadim Shipachyov, who is available. It's a free agent, and lots of people have talked, and the Rangers have been among those teams, Russ, that we've heard.
They're in on everybody, Ek. They're not getting this guy. They're not getting him. Okay, we'll stop that right here. He's not going to the Rangers.
Yeah, it seems like a long shot. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the most recent speculation, and it goes along with who signed in Montreal, is that because Shipachyov was interested in going to Montreal, and then there was this thing with his contract in KHL about whether he had to buy himself out or if it was a year stay or had to go or whatever. But now that Radulov has signed in Montreal, I've heard there's a possibility of him going to the Canadiens. But the other one, Russ, I don't know if you heard this one, was Florida.
I did see that, yeah.
Florida, I mean, the new place they spend money like it's going out of style in Florida right now. That would be really surprising if he went to Florida.
If he goes to Florida, other players are gonna become available. There's just no way around it.
You would think so.
Well, I mean, and we talked about this yesterday, is the fact that you've got a guy like Nick Bjugstad. I mean, after Trocheck has been signed to a long-term contract, they've extended Ekblad. And they signed Demers. They've spent a lot of money. I believe Huberdeau is Huberdeau's he's got one more year before he becomes an RFA, so he has to be extended. And you also have Bjugstad, who's under contract for 5 more years at $4.1 million, but they're spending money in other areas. A guy like Bjugstad is somebody they may move out simply because they have so many guys that they're spending money on.
Mm-hmm.
If they move out Bjugstad after moving out Gudbranson, and really we are just seeing a total shift in Florida. I mean, there's a lot of that young core they brought in to be the next core for the Florida Panthers, the core that did really well, improved every year, and got into the playoffs this year. Now we're going to see a complete shift away from them. You really have to wonder who's in charge there in Florida again. I mean, it really confuses. It's very confusing to me.
Well, I mean, the dynamic, at least I think it shows that, Dale Talon is not in control anymore. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious because.
I mean, they don't say that though.
Yeah, so. but the actions, Zach. I mean,
I know the actions are
his players, and Huberdeau he drafted very early in the first round. It's. I mean, it's now the thing is they do have some wiggle room because they have Dave Bolland under contract for 3 more years, and from what I've heard, just through following other people, is that Dave Bolland may never play again. He had that Achilles injury in Toronto, and then signed that big deal with Florida. And he played less than 40 games in the first year, so something is wrong. I mean. It's probably a debilitating injury, and if that's the case, then they can put him on long-term injury, and they have a lot of space.
Right, and that seems to be what's going to happen. They have made so many drastic changes. I mean, The other teams interested in this, fine young Russian, like we talked about Montreal. That's a.
He's not young. I think isn't he 29?
Yeah, I guess young is the wrong way to put it, but new to the NHL.
He's young to us.
I mean, he's a big kid. He's a good player. And he seems to be NHL ready. He looked every bit as good as Radulov in the last tournament.
Yeah, I mean, if he comes into the NHL, he's going to walk in right away. I mean,
he's a top 6 forward, which is, I think he's a top 6 forward. I mean, we never know. We never know with Russians exactly how they're going to play out, but he projects to be a top 6 forward. The other team is Detroit, who still has money to spend based on all the stuff they've done. And Detroit, it's interesting to see. I look at these teams last year; they were all battling for the final playoff spots. Boston and Detroit, remember, neck and neck through that whole thing. The Islanders were in there too. The Rangers were in there. Really, they were. I mean, the Rangers were only a couple points ahead of the whole thing, and the Flyers were in there. And all those teams were tight. And you look at those teams as which ones have gone the right direction. Detroit has gotten the better. I think has gotten better more so than any other team that was in that little battle.
I don't know.
It's hard to argue. I mean, don't you think they picked up a lot of forwards? They picked up some scoring.
They picked up some scoring. They did.
They've improved themselves more than the Flyers, Rangers, Islanders, or Bruins, I think. I mean, I think they have.
Yeah, on the surface they have. I mean, the only edge that the Flyers or the Rangers could have is whatever young talent they might be able to insert into their lineup this year, because I don't think there's really anybody new that Detroit could insert. Now, Mantha could certainly give them more.
Yeah.
But the Rangers have Buchnevich, who it's really an unknown, but he could end up being like a big second-line talent. We just, we have to wait and see how he works into North American hockey, and then the Islanders could add, Barzal or Del Cole or both. I mean, we have to sort of see how they come out of camp. So I can't say it yet, but on the surface, that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, there were like 5 teams there who basically had the same record, and the Bruins have definitely been the ones who have seemed to have not done the most. I mean, the Bruins have tried to do things, but they haven't done much yet.
They signed Backus, and I don't think it was a.
Well, Backus is a great signing, of course, but
it's a big signing.
Yeah, and I think that Ladd was signed by the Islanders. You could argue too. Those guys. But both of those players are 2 of the more suspect signings, in my opinion, of UFA Day.
Yeah, but let me ask, what makes them? I mean, I agree to Backus is the type of player that the signing is suspect because he's had a lot of wear and tear, and he's 32 years old. Same thing with Ladd. But what makes Franz Nielsen not suspect? He's around the same age. He's paid in the same neighborhood of money. It's a lengthy deal. And
I feel like he's projecting up still, though. I feel like Franz Nielsen is still at least projecting more up than Backus or Ladd are.
Yeah, I feel there's that, and I feel there's less expectations for Franz Nielsen compared to the other two. Like, again, going back to that Hitchcock interview from now it's 2 days ago, he talked about Backus, and he said they had long discussions as to why they wanted to keep him, and of course his leadership and in the room and everything else are reasons why, but then the reasons that they were thinking about not keeping him were obviously speed and other things like that. And so, and that's where Franz Nielsen is still fast. And so for as long as he's fast, we're going to still give him the edge that way.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you have to at this point. I mean, to me, the most suspect of all the signings is Andrew Ladd. Just because I feel as if Andrew Ladd was starting to trend backwards in Winnipeg, and I feel as if that when he got to Chicago, he actually was given top 6 minutes and didn't do a whole lot in Chicago, playing on a top 6 line. I mean, in a top 6 role in Chicago, that you should score. You should definitely put up pretty good numbers. I mean, you're talking about playing with talented people when you're playing top 6 minutes in Chicago. And he really didn't do that much, and yet he got a giant contract on the island. I just felt as if, I can't see how I would have traded Okposo for Ladd straight up. Like, if I could have made a trade.
I'm pretty vocal that I wouldn't have.
Yeah, and really that's what they did. I mean, they took. I mean, they could have gotten Okposo for what they gave Ladd.
Yeah, but I think what they want, and I agree that, I mean, Okposo is 27, Ladd is 30, Ladd has got some wear on his tires, but I think the aspect that the Islanders were looking at was the championship pedigree. You know, the win in Chicago, the win in Carolina. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's been a leader with the Winnipeg Jets. So, you know, they see that, and I think that's what they were looking for from somebody who would play with Tavares now and then maybe move to a second line later. But I don't know. It's just the thing that's concerning about him and for a couple other forwards out there like Louis Eriksson and Backus is like how much is left in the tank, and you know, is it year 3 or year 4 before those contracts become albatrosses?
Right. And you know, this all kind of transfers into my other thing I wanted to discuss today, which is the latest Cam Fowler ruler, which is the David Krejci for Cam Fowler rumor. And you know, on the one,
I don't see why Anaheim would do it. I'll go out on a limb and just say that.
Yeah, I don't get that. That's
well, what I was told is, you know, I mean, it depends what you think Krejci has left, because Krejci's been injured a lot, but when Krejci's healthy, he's still a great player, and he hasn't, you know, he's still one of the top players, you know, in my opinion, and he's incredibly fast. He's got great speed, and a lot of that comes into, I think, into the fact that, you know, this is the copycat league. This is the concept of, you know, getting yourself like I'm not going to say because Bonino is not fast, but just I'm saying, like, you know, you have to have 3 lines. The concept of 3 lines. Anaheim has 2 lines, and this is the buzzword, right, of this free agency. Everybody needs 3 lines. Well, everybody's always. It's funny because that's suddenly a buzzword. Yeah, I can't remember. A couple years ago, everybody needed 4 lines, and now it's really, in a way, we've gone backwards. Even though everyone's like suddenly, but you need 3 really good lines, where before you needed 2 really good lines and 2 pretty good lines. Now you just need 3 really good lines, and your 4th line, who cares? That's sort of what.
Not who cares, but your 4th line has got to be energetic. It's got to be effective, but it's also got to be cheap because you're paying 3 lines.
Yeah. And it's got to have penalty killers on it. That's the other thing that's like the big 4th line trend. Is like, okay, we're going to put penalty killers on the 4th line, and they're going to be specialists, like they kill penalties.
Right. But if you look at Anaheim right now, look how they're set up, and you look. I mean, Krejci's over a $7 million contract for another 4 or 5 years, and you've already got them with Getzlaf, with Perry, with Kessler.
Yeah.
So,
no, they've got big money out there. I agree, and it's hard to imagine like that. This is a tough one.
Yes.
All I can think of is that there's you know the money that they're going to give Cam Fowler, they just feel is going to be crazy. I guess.
Well, here's the thing. All right, so I'm looking at Krejci since 2012, 2013 when he turned 26. 47 games, then 80 games, then 47 games, then 72 games.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they can't afford to get Krejci and then have him be at 50 games.
Right.
That first 47 games was the lockout shortened year. So
true. Okay. But he's been trending with he's missing games.
He definitely, and he's been playing hurt too. Like, it's not just in some of the games he's been quite. I mean, talking to people up in Boston, they'll tell you Krejci hasn't been 100% very often. That he's, you know, kind of got the Peter Forsberg thing, you know, going on where he's playing, but he's not necessarily himself.
But the thing is, I mean, with Anaheim, if you add a Krejci, I mean, first of all, you've got Fowler under control for 2 more years,
right?
At $4 million, so you have time. To me, it's like, okay, maybe you want to trade for another center like Krejci, but you trade one that is more fiscally sound than spending over $7 million on another guy on top of Getzlaf and on top of Kessler.
I could see that. And it also.
Thing is, I mean, he just had hip surgery.
He just had,
guy.
Yeah.
And so that's another red flag.
Big time. And I wonder if Boston, you know, would retain any of that salary. That's the other question I wonder about. Like, because I've heard they might, and it would be a strange move in some ways to retain salary for a guy like David. I mean, Krejci, if Boston's going to be successful, I think he still has to be part of that right now. And I don't
think they have a choice. Like, I think these rumors are coming out of Boston because of their desperation to get other defensemen that they're not able to land, and unfortunately, they don't have a lot of pieces left. You know, they should have thought about that when they traded Dougie Hamilton. They had pieces there, and they've shifted things around since they've won a championship, and it hasn't really worked out for them.
Right.
Let's go revisionist history here. If they keep Tyler Seguin, they probably don't extend David Krejci, and your number 1 and 2 is Seguin, Bergeron. Now, with Krejci being hurt sometimes, Bergeron is forced into a first-line role, which I think he's less effective as than being a second-line center where he can kick in offense and be a shutdown guy as well. So that move that Peter Chiarelli made, trading Tyler Seguin to Dallas, I think is going to have disastrous effects for the Bruins for years to come.
Yeah, I think ownership forced them to make that move. I really do. But the other thing is, I think Krejci got those numbers and got that contract off of what he did in the playoffs against Philadelphia. He just kills Philadelphia, and I think that was when he looked his absolute best. I haven't seen him look that good since. Have you, Ek?
No, I agree. I mean, he's still against Philadelphia. Even last year, he's still played well against Philadelphia. He does have you're right. He has something on the Flyers, but that playoff in general, he was very good. So I think that a lot of it has to do with that to me. But yeah, I don't it's hard to disagree there. I think that it's almost like it's almost like this is a trade that could happen later in the season when Krejci's going well and everybody sort of like says, okay, he's healthy now, and but these kind of trades usually have to happen now if they're going to happen at all.
One thing that many deals that have happened in the past year proved is that anybody can be traded. I mean, Leaf fans thought that Dion Phaneuf, his contract was not tradable, and it was. They had to take a lot of bad money back, but they made the deal work. So it's possible that Krejci could get traded, but the injury history, the length of the deal, and the amount are just big hills that Don Sweeney would have to climb to get that contract moved.
No, I'm 100% with you.
The best thing Boston has going for him, it's an easy division. That's really the best thing they have going for them.
Yes.
It is an easy division. I'm coming in the top three. One of the teams in that top three, is probably not going to be the greatest team in the world, and it depends. I guess it depends on where Florida is heading. I mean, if Florida, to me, could be, you definitely have only a couple more years of it being an easy division. It feels like.
Yes.
Buffalo's coming, Toronto's coming. Yep. Montreal is so unpredictable. I mean, Montreal could be right back if Price comes in and they get
them. Win the division, nobody would blink an eye.
They could run away with it. They have the ability to do that. It depends on how everything plays out. But before we get into some of the arbitration people I want to discuss today, I wanted to also get into. Russ, you had interesting thoughts on Cole Bardreau.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there? Explain who Cole Bardreau is, because a lot of people don't.
I will. First off, Ron Hextall was on Breakfast on Broad, and so there was an interview, and he name-dropped him, and that caused a little stir, and Sarah Baker and John Sakella, a guy who I know, were talking about it on Twitter, and I'm like, yeah, Cole Bardreau, I interviewed him last year at last year's camp, when he came in, and he was a guy that was slated to be at the 2013 draft. He didn't get drafted, though, because he basically had a C7 injury in his vertebrae. And so, he didn't blame anybody for not drafting him after that, and he's had to work his way back. The Flyers signed him last year. Smart signing. He got him 13 goals in Lehigh. It was his first season back. I put the article back up because he had a game number that he wanted to reach. I don't know what it was, 72 or something, and I think he got really close, if not reaching that. And so this year I think the expectations have increased for him, and he's a guy that can play center or wing. He's very strong. He's not the biggest guy, but he's really strong, really good face-off guy. He was a hard-nosed player in the ECAC. He actually went to World Junior Camp with Shane Gostisbehere. I remember interviewing both of them in that camp. And so they're really familiar with each other. And so he's a guy to watch, because he's a guy where on one of those bottom six roles, he could always walk away with one of those. And he's had a chance to sort of bring his game back up to where it used to be. And so we'll watch out for him. Another interesting guy, I just posted something a little while ago, is Mike Vecchione. He was a freshman, and he was also a teammate on Union when Union won, and we all watched him win here in Philly when they won the championship. And so he's undrafted, and he's getting an invite. That's the thing I like about camp. I don't know if you remember, J.T. Smith was in Flyers camp.
Yeah,
it's fun to see these guys.
Yeah, it's like a real shot for these guys. It's always a good story, and every once in a while somebody comes through this.
Yes.
That really surprises you. I mean, and Bellemare was that to a degree. I mean, when he came through, and he really, now he's turned into quite a player. I mean, and I think that there are a couple roles on the Flyers definitely up for grabs in those bottom six roles. I think those bottom six.
Last year the Flyers literally, I don't remember any kind of announcement. I don't remember anything. All of a sudden I remember looking up, and there was a guy named Myers, and there was a locker, and it was Philip Myers, who was basically a free agent defenseman in junior ranks, very talented offensive guy, big guy, little bit of a project a couple of years ago, and now this year in the Memorial Cup playoffs was a star. Like he was fantastic, and he came in with no fanfare.
Right.
They were calling him Phil instead of Philippe. It almost seemed like they just wanted to sort of slide him in there and not have any of us notice. And I remember I noticed like the second day of camp, like, wait a minute, this name sounds familiar. Who, and then so it was interesting how they sort of did that.
That's the funniest thing about these rookie camps for me.
Yes.
I mean, for you, it's got to be even crazier because you really track all these guys. But for me,
I try. You can't track them all. You can't.
Yeah, no, for me, I track them through you, basically, or I track them, through others that I listen to. But I don't really know these prospects except for the biggies. But then suddenly, we'll be talking and that guy, and it'll just click on. Wait a second, he was the guy at the at the World Junior, and it all kind of goes together.
Yes.
That's what's fun about these rookie camps in general. I agree with you. I think Van de Velde is a guy in Philly that is on the edge right now, and he is of course a North Dakota kid, so that's like a big thing that we all talk about. Like he is coming in with Hackstall's system, but whether or not he goes any further than that, I don't know. I mean, I wrote today again that I still feel T.J. Brennan is a great pickup, and I don't think that people.
I like the pickup. I mean, there's nothing not to like. I mean,
the assumption is he's an AHL player, which makes the fans better, and that's all well and well and good.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But he can be just that and be a success, and that's what's kind of great about T.J. Brennan. But at the same time, as we know with rookies developing longer, Brennan has had an interesting route there, and I'm curious.
I like T.J. Brennan.
You've covered him a lot. We've seen a lot of games.
I like him a lot. He's a really good guy and a really good player, but he's had 3 cracks at the NHL. He had 2 opportunities with Toronto the last couple of years at the end of the season when they were playing out the string just to make an impression, and he really didn't.
I think you're looking.
He did when he came into Philly.
I think in Philly what you're looking at is because like last year when they had a rash of injuries, they had trouble calling up guys because the only guy they could call up had a $5 million salary, and they couldn't call him up, right?
Right.
And in that instance, yes, he can be a stopgap guy making $625,000, and you probably can move him back freely between the AHL and the NHL because when you're sending him down the one-way contract, the team doesn't want to claim that guy. So that makes sense. But if you're depending on him to be like your number 6, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. If you're looking for him to be called up instead of Hag or Moran or whoever else is at Lehigh Valley, then I think he can help you out if there's injuries in the short term. But as a permanent number 6 or number 7, I don't know.
The crazy thing about last year is if you'd have told me that Andrew McDonald would have ended up in the playoffs playing for the Flyers and playing the power play, I might have gone like this with my head, like, really? Are you serious?
Yeah, he played an important role for the Flyers last year.
And it happened, even though he was demoted. So you just never know sometimes with defensemen. You just don't.
And all you know is that you need a ton of them. I mean, I think that's what you know. You need a ton of defensemen to get through the NHL, especially in the playoffs. The playoffs eat defensemen alive. Like you cannot get through.
I want to look between the lines on this. Looking between the lines on this basically tells you that the Flyers don't really think Hogg is a guy that will get called up at all this year, and Sam Morin, same thing. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't add a guy like Brennan. But you know what? They looked at their core and they probably said, who's the next guy that could really get called up if he has to play 6 or 8 games in a row?
Right.
And that's why I think they made this signing.
But the benefit there is that even if you don't, I mean, he is, the AHL version of the Norris Trophy winner. Yes. He will help Lehigh Valley. He will elevate that team by his play.
Right. And that'll make that Lehigh Valley team needs skill. I mean, they really do. And they've got a lot of grinders, but they can use some skilled players like this. If you're going down to the Flyers camp, there's going to be some fun things to probably see the next couple days too. What are the big names that are coming into town, Russ, for this?
I mean, Provorov's coming in, Konecny's coming in.
Yep.
I gave you some of the lesser names. I think Myers is also still on that list. I had to look over the list again today. I mean, they have a ton of goalies. Carter Hart. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing Carter Hart. Sandstrom's on that list. Tomek is on that list. They have a load of goalies, and so I'm excited about the goalies. And Let me see. I'll get you the rest of the list.
Travis Sanheim is Travis Sanheim coming to town, or he's going to be?
Yeah, Sanheim's coming to town, and
because is it safe to say that? I mean, in my opinion, at least. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to tell what the Flyers. I can be honest and say that of all my years covering the Flyers, I have the least amount of input into what they're going to do now than I've ever had. I mean, there's other teams I have much more connections with now, but they, it seems like Provorov is the best bet to make it of those guys. Sanheim the second.
He is, but again, I'm going to go and head everybody off on the pass when they say, well, because we're going to hear it. We're going to hear it for the next 3 or 4 days. Well, Provorov has nothing left to prove at the CHL level, and my answer would be Brandon didn't win the Memorial Cup. If they did, then I might agree with you, but he didn't.
Yeah, but that's not his fault.
Russ?
No, it's not about being his fault. It's about, hey, go back.
The best team ever, probably, in the Memorial Cup, like that team.
But whatever. I mean,
right?
you didn't win.
But Russ, even the thing is, even if a player does win the Memorial Cup, that doesn't guarantee them making the NHL because we've talked about this a few times. But Mitch Marner is 163 pounds. Yep. He's trying to get up to 170 pounds before the beginning of training camp. Not to say that he can't make the NHL at 165 pounds, but what they're worried about is him being not just protected, but being able to withstand the wear and tear of the NHL. So, I mean, that's definitely going to be a consideration for Provorov. I think it's tough for defensemen making it at 19 years old. But
he's a big kid, though.
Here's some other names. I mean, Nicholas Aube-Kubel, we've been watching. This will be like his third camp. I think the height factor is hurting him. He's getting stronger, and he is fast, but I think that's sort of hurting him trying to make the NHL. So we'll see. We'll see what he looks like. I liked a little bit last year Samuel Dove McFalls. He was a bigger guy at 6'2". He showed me a little something. He could sort of be like a Van de Velde replacement down the road. I liked Connor Bunnaman, the guy they drafted. He'll be in there. Pascal Laberge, of course. I really love him. I mean, we talked about him earlier in the year, and now he's a Flyer. I talked about Becky Owen. On defense, we're talking about Sanheim, Provorov, Morin. I want to see if Morin can play both sides. He couldn't the first 2 camps. When you had a crisscross on the ice, he had a problem, and so we'll see if he's improved on that because that's something that happens in the NHL. So Reese Wilcox is also a guy that's sort of not talked about enough because now his college career is done, and he could be another guy that could literally step into the NHL sooner than you expect. He's a bigger guy. He played with Cornell. I really liked him. I watched him all his years, and Alex Lyon, the free agent goalie, will be fun to watch. He was a great college goalie.
Yeah, good job, good stuff. And also, I guess, is there any fear on bringing some of these guys in to losing them to Vegas? That's the other question I had. As far as how that works.
Well,
I don't quite know how that works.
Well, Provorov is exempt because he's so anybody who was drafted in the 2015 draft going forward is exempt. Anybody in 2014 who didn't sign a contract as a European type of player, they would be exempt too unless they came over to the American Hockey League or the NHL.
You could lose Sam Morin. You could lose him. I mean, that's a possibility because of his time. You could lose a Robert Hogg. I mean, Sam Morin is a guy that they could possibly lose, but I would just say it like this. I like the guy. I don't think he's going to be a star at the NHL. I think he'll play in the NHL. But at the end of the day, if you lose him and you get to keep Sanheim and Provorov and the other defensemen that they have, I think you're, Gostisbehere, you're still ahead of the game.
You're ahead of the game. Yeah. All right, let's go into some of the arbitration guys. And then we'll talk more about them tomorrow as well. And we won't go through the whole list here because there's quite a few interesting players. And then we'll also get into Finland tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll also be doing a little podcast for the Patreon people as well. We'll talk about that too. Okay. I guess we'll probably do it right after the show tomorrow. I'm guessing would be the best thing to do.
That sounds good.
If that works for you guys.
Yep.
So anyway, again, if you want to help support the show, we really appreciate it. It's on patreon.com/hockey. And you go there and you can put 5 cents a show in, which is like $1. We do 20 shows a month, so that's $1 a month, $5 a month. We'll get you into that, access for that, what we're going to call the HockeyBuzzCast, off the record show, which we'll do the first of tomorrow, which will go out to only Patreon people who are subscribers at $5 a month. And more and more of you guys are subscribing. We really appreciate it. Tomorrow we're going to go through some of the names of people who've subscribed to as well, and kind of give props because it means a lot to us. So just go there. You can see, $5 a month would be wonderful. $10 a month. There's some of you doing that too, which is awesome. We appreciate it. And yeah, so patreon.com/hockey. And it's always fun. I get when I get a text message that somebody joined. It means a lot to us to keep the show going. All right, so let's talk about arbitration as well, because this is going to be there are more players, and every year we see arbitration this arbitration list comes out, and every year these players, almost all of them get signed by the time we get to arbitration. It's very weird that I think that's kind of crazy. But let's go through some of the guys. So some of them, starting with Arizona, Michael Stone, not really. I don't think he's a big issue. I think that'll get done. If any of these players I mentioned, though, the interesting thing is who will walk away from some of these guys. I think some of these guys, teams will walk away from arbitration. We're hearing.
I think there's maybe 1 or 2 walkaways in the whole group.
Yeah. Okay. Michael Stone is not one of them in your mind.
Mark Stone, no.
No, Michael Stone in Arizona.
Stone, sorry, the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, Arizona. Colorado brings us to our first biggie, which is Tyson Barrie, who is obviously an RFA. He's been in the news a lot lately because he's been rumored to be moved. He is pretty much the quintessential Pittsburgh Penguin-esque defenseman. He they've been and they came out and said no, he's not going to get traded. His last salary was $3.2 million. He's going to arbitration. He could probably get in the $5 million range.
Yeah, but it's on a 1-year deal, and that is what Colorado. I mean, Colorado just doesn't want to sign him to the long-term deal. If they get him for 1 year, even if it's for $5 million, they're going to be happy because they can push the decision down the road. And the value of defense, as you've seen, and as we've seen this in the last month, is going up and up and up. So they get him signed for a 1-year deal. He has another good year. You could see him traded next summer, and they get more.
Yeah, Barry's one of the few that I think will actually go to arbitration based on the fact that they've done all this negotiating in the press, out of the press, and it hasn't worked out.
And this is the same team that brought you Ryan O'Reilly, and they have a tendency to do this.
Yes.
There are people who I've talked to who think he could end up with a 2-year bridge deal in there somehow, instead of hitting arbitration. But
I don't think he wants that. I don't
think he wants that either. It's a question, whether, and I don't know if that would bring him up to free agency or not. I think it might. But if not, the comparables for him are, people say Krug, which just was signed at 5.25.
Right. That's fair.
Vatanen at 4.875, somewhere in there. So five is probably about right. 5 over 4 years might be my guess, but we'll see how that plays out. Then, oops, I just lost my notes. Here we go. Then the next thing we have here, moving along to the Buffalo Sabres, would be Mr. Grigorenko, right?
Zemgus Girgensons.
Oh, I'm sorry. Grigorenko is still with the Avalanche. I'm just an idiot. There we go. Yeah, we'll go to Girgensons in a second. So Grigorenko is.
I don't think that's going to be a problem for Colorado. I think
no, it shouldn't be. They should get that done. He only made $675 last year.
Yeah.
The Red Wings, Jared Coreau.
They just signed him.
They just signed him today.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the first one that's actually. That's I think the first one that's gotten done, right? Danny DeKeyser is the bigger one there.
Yeah, and that.
He'll get a bridge deal.
Yes, probably.
Yeah. They're trying to work it out from what I was told. If he goes there, he'll get 1-year deal. 2.25 was what he made before.
No, I think he'll get 2 years. I think he'll get 2 years. He'll probably get somewhere around $5.5 million, $6 million, something like that.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, so then the Minnesota Wild, Jordan Schroeder. Not much there.
He did well for them, so I think.
Yeah.
I think they'd be smart to at least give him the 1-year deal and not let it go to arbitration, because that's one where they're close to the cap team and they could get stung a little on that arbitration because he had a good year. I don't remember how many goals he had. Let me look it up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought Girgensons and Marcus Foligno were going to arbitration with Buffalo, and I know that there was talk about Girgensons. Around the draft, him being possibly traded because he really did not gel well with Dan Biosma's system. He had good years under Ted Nolan, and then last year took a step back. And I think he's a talented player, and I like him, but I'm not sure. It may be something where he stays around a little while longer, and then they find a trade for him. But
Schroeder had only 4 points in the regular season in 26 games, and then he had a goal in the playoffs in 2 games. I don't know what he made, but he'll probably double his salary.
Yeah, I think that's safe. Another biggie is the Devils with Kyle Palmieri.
Yeah, that one they have to sign that one. They'll get killed in arbitration on that one.
I know, and his contract was only $1.6 million last year.
Yeah, he should be making $4 to $5 million after the year that he had.
Yep. The Rangers have 4. Kevin Hayes.
There's a walkaway right there.
Now that to me is the walkaway one. Yes.
That could be a walkaway. Chris Kreider, of course, is a biggie.
I honestly, Russ, I'm shocked that it's going to arbitration and they're not trying to get him locked.
It won't go to arbitration. If you looked at the record of Glenn Sader, and even though Glenn Sader's not the guy anymore and it's Jeff Gordon, organizationally, the Rangers have had like one guy go to arbitration in like 10, 15 years. Like
they are notorious for the last-second deal. They'll
make the last-second deal with Chris Kreider. I'm not even worried about it.
And I think they might also with Dylan McIlrath, although that's another one that's
that one's on the edge. I think they'll make a deal, and I think he'll want to make a deal because he likes it there. I think the question is he's probably looking for a guaranteed spot, and they may not have it for him.
Do you remember the last player to go? I had this note. The last player to go to
I saw it yesterday, and, it escapes me, so go ahead.
It would be Zerdov.
That's right, Nikolai Zerdov.
Zerdov in 2009. So it's been 6 years, 7 years now.
By the way, Nikolai Zerdov will always have a special place in my heart because when he got cut from the Flyers during camp, he had a limo pick him up and leave training camp. He left training camp in a limousine, and that was the greatest way to leave an NHL club in the history of the NHL, I think.
When you've been cut from a practice facility to have a limousine pick you up. That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's classy. JT Miller's the other guy.
JT Miller will get signed before everything breaks.
He'll get a significant raise.
The Ottawa Senators have a biggie in Mike Hoffman.
Yeah.
We talked, and in my blog I mentioned today as well, I've heard his name thrown around in trade rumors a little bit lately too.
And Russ pointed this out before. They brought in the guy who coached him in junior.
Yeah, so they're not getting rid of him.
It would make no sense for them to trade the guy after they bring in a coach who.
No, but I think they're I think they might be negotiating a little bit with
it. We know that the Ottawa Senators are notoriously cheap. They've been that way since Eugene Melnyk bought that team. So it's no shock that they're going to probably go to the 11th hour and try to get pay him as little money as possible.
Yeah, no. If not, then they really have to worry about their team.
Unfortunately, if you're an NHL fan and you're looking at the ticker for these players, it's like sort of like being at night court. It's as boring as that.
Yes. No, I completely agree with that. Couldn't agree more. All right, let me see. Oh, my other list.
After Ottawa.
Yes, I'm sorry. I got my I just lost my list again. My notes is my daughter texted me and messed me up. 1 second here. All right, so here's my next one. Oh, of course, it brings us to after Ottawa. Brings us to the Flyers. Brandon Manning. There could be a walkaway. My prediction.
No, there won't be a walkaway with that.
I don't think so.
Nope. I think you can't have enough defensemen. He made the team for most of last year. I think they will give him a 1-year deal. I think it'll happen right at the 11th hour.
If I was him, I would sign it soon.
It may not be up to him. I mean, but Ron Hextall was very cool about it today. He basically was like, look, this is like a negotiating thing. Yeah. Basically gives a deadline to both sides. He doesn't even talk about it like it's anything of a worry about any of these players, Braden Shen included.
Yeah, Braden Shen, the other one, 2.75. Hextall saying the other day, we're going to get started on that pretty quickly here.
Right.
I mean, the we should get started on that. You should get started on that. It's kind of like what you say to your wife. It's like what you say to your wife when you got to weed the yard.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to get started on that pretty soon. Yeah.
Yeah, he undersells everything, Ron Hextall.
He does. And the Flyers have money to spend. So they have what I've heard, somewhere around the $12 million range, right? But they're planning on 5 or 6 for Braden Shen, and then I think they're going to end up, that's what I'm hearing.
Much?
Yeah.
I think he could go anywhere from 4.75 to 5.5.
Yeah, somewhere in there, I'd say. And then they've got a couple other players like Manning and Jordan Weal is the other one who.
That could be a walkaway.
That could be a walkaway. Although I really wish they would give the kid a shot.
Me too.
Like he's the guy. Remember they brought over for Luke Shen and Vinny LeCavier, which was really just a salary dump for sure. But he has wheels. Jordan Wheel has wheels. He can fly. So
he does.
He can skate. So
he makes puns too.
Yeah. So the Flyers, and the Flyers want to keep some money around for the trade deadline, which is so they're sort of back into the game, so to speak, after last year not being there for quite a few years. They've been a long time since the Flyers could talk about keeping money around for the cap at trade deadline. Finally, before we get out of here today, can
I just mention the Toronto ones because there were 3 Toronto.
Yeah, I was going to do them tomorrow. I was going to hold off on them.
Oh, okay.
But I was going to just mention and a couple, and we're going to get into. I wanted to get into Finland too. Russ brought up Finland, and I think that's a really interesting topic for tomorrow as well. We'll talk about them a little tomorrow. But I wanted to talk about Jaden Schwartz, who is might be the best player on this list. In my opinion, I'm a big Jaden Schwartz fan. I think that kid is the real deal and vitally important to St. Louis, especially given what's happened with losing Backus and everything. They really need to make Jaden Schwartz happy. I think they're trying. They're still optimistic from what I've heard that they're going to get a deal done long term. But
I think it'll happen.
Yeah. I mean, he is Tarasenko's line mate. He is a big deal. And he's got just tons of talent and speed.
Yeah, well, but it's a question of now you're paying Tarasenko close to $8 million.
Right.
What do you pay Schwartz? I think probably you pay Schwartz at least over 5, probably closer to 6.
Right.
He'll probably get just below Stastny's pay grade. That's what'll happen.
Stastny's 7. Right. I think he's going to get just below what Alex Steen is getting, which is 5.8. At least that's what they'll want to get him for.
That's what they'll want to, but I think he'll end up making more than Steen.
Right, and that's the whole thing here. This is I'm not saying that it's as acrimonious.
You're piecing the puzzle together.
Yeah, it's not as acrimonious as Colorado's was, where they were bound and determined to keep Ryan O'Reilly underneath Matt Duchene. But there's in St. Louis's salary structure, they probably want to keep Jaden Schwartz on par or maybe a little below Alex Steen, and if they have to go above it, then you're. I mean, Alex Steen is probably your next team captain there, either him or Peter Angelo. So you do not want to pay Jaden Schwartz more than your eventual captain.
Right.
Yeah. I do agree with that. Let's get into the Bodker thing real fast before we leave today. We did talk about this, and. So what exactly is happening here? Because I'm a little confused on this one.
It's a very confusing thing. Maybe Mike has the good skinny on it, but there's some 35% rule that is allowed to. I don't know. Is in contracts where I guess this is where you see these contracts where it's like $6 million for this year, $6 million for that year, $4 million for, and I guess when they sent that contract into the NHL denied it, and instead. It came out through the wash, a nice clean 4 years, $4 million per. And why aren't all deals like that? It just makes sense.
Is that allowed? Is the NHL allowed to do that? I mean, can they just take the deal and redo it? I mean, that's kind of strange.
Well, all I know is that right now, according to Cap Central, the structure of the deal is it's $4 million AAV for 4 years, $5 million the first 2 years, $3 million the last 2 years. So it's front loaded, but not ridiculously so. But if they had exceeded this 35% rule, then that means that they were probably putting the first year around $6 million and the last year around $2 million or something like that. But I didn't see that. It only came out like you said in the wash as a 4 for 4 with $5 million with the first 2 years.
General manager did a good job with it. That's where I saw it, so I have to give him credit. But the interesting thing about it is it does show you where these Sharks are at.
Right.
And that's the thing. They really want to win this year, and so they really went to the absolute limitation of trying to get this contract in, and it's the 35% variability rule.
How does something like this happen? I mean, these guys to me it's and then when it happens, I mean, there's a couple things that are strange to me. The deal is, I was reading up on this too, that if his original deal is worth $5 million, right? The first year of his deal, his contract can't drop more than $1.75 million throughout the life of the contract.
Right.
And it drops 2.
It drops 2, which is 40% as opposed to 35%.
Right.
Is this just someone not doing math correctly? I mean, is that what this comes down to? Is someone
this is hey, let's try and slip this in because we're looking at how our salary structure is, and it's getting tight. Things are getting tight for the Sharks.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, you would think they would have done it the other way because in 2 years, Marlowe and Thornton's contract drop off.
Yeah, but they must have other plans. That's why they wanted to work it in this way. That's my guess.
Yeah, but there you are. This is a sign of going for it, which the Sharks should do because they were in the Stanley Cup final.
I mean, like, what's Logan Couture's next contract? That's probably what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And they probably have a plan for that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, Couture is up in 3 years. So is Pavelski.
Okay, so that's what they're looking at is to extend those guys.
And Thornton and Marlowe are up after this year.
Right.
And that'll be an interesting thing to see what happens with them too. So, whether they'll, I have a hard time believing that Marlowe will sign beyond this year.
And one more, Brent Burns is a UFA after this year.
Yeah, and that's a biggie.
The funny thing about the Sharks is if we were in the uncapped world, they probably would have won the Cup already. But because they have assembled a really nice group of players, and they have everything you'd want.
It's a great point.
The way the cap is, they can't keep them all, and that's the problem.
Yeah, they've had to move. I mean, really, we did see firsthand evidence this year of how the cap creates parity. Like that, we just saw it completely. Take some of the best players off of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh wins it all, but okay, we're going to take a couple of their players off there. Yeah, they're not the great players, but they're the important player. They're still important players to Pittsburgh.
Yep. And this is a subject that maybe we should talk about on a future show during the summer. Is now if you look at the sort of dichotomy between the NBA and the NHL, you have the dynasty teams in the NBA. So next year, more than likely, the NBA final will be again Cleveland and Golden State, especially now that Durant goes to Golden State and LeBron staying in Cleveland. It's more than likely you're going to have those teams. But next year, there's no guarantee that either San Jose or Pittsburgh are going to be in the final. It could be Chicago's time again. It could be, whoever.
One good thing, I'll tell you the one great thing about the NHL. They haven't created that exemption that exists in the NBA where some great player who's at the end of a deal, like let's say Joe Thornton next year says, boy, I really want to win the Cup. Who looks like the best Cup team? Let me look in the newspaper. Okay, I'm going to join that team for the least amount of money. Players don't do that in the NHL, and it's a good thing that they don't because that's what's happening now in the NBA. Like Ray Allen was retired. Now he wants to come back and play for the Warriors because, hey, I can win a championship there. Why not? I didn't, and it's just, it gets crazy.
It's just the nature of the sports, isn't it? I mean, the fact that you've got 6 players on the basketball court and they basically run the whole thing, and I had 6 guys coming off the bench, but most of them are insignificant. I mean, that's just that you can win us. You have the best team, and it's pretty clear that hockey is so much more complicated than that.
But I think there is a place. I think there is a place in the NHL for a Larry Bird exemption for the guy that you want to keep.
No, I think that's terrible. I don't want it.
Oh, okay. I mean, I think a lot of fans would disagree because then
Of course, fans would disagree. I mean, Penguins fans would want that. Like the
team. Fans don't care about the fiscal sanity of the NHL. They care about keeping their players. That's all they care about.
I mean, mine has always been at the
ask the NHLPA if they would like that idea.
You probably would because.
No, I don't think they would.
No, because it would end up. It depends on how it plays out, but it would end up opening up cap space, right? Because anything to open up cap space, they would like.
I'm not sure how it works, but I think that there is, like, if there's a player who's re-signed, who is a player who existing, the quote Larry Bird exemption, there's a discount on the cap. Like say you sign somebody for $10 or $10 million. Then the cap hit would only be 6 or 5. It would be a percentage of that because it's a discount for their own player.
Well, and then what this is. This is the NBA. This is the NBA basically admitting to it that it's just a completely star-driven league, and it has to keep its stars in place so that because the stars are the marketing of the teams. The way these teams are marketed are based on their stars that they have.
We haven't seen this happen in the NHL yet where 2 or 3 guys get together and they had drinks over the summer and decide, hey, when's your contract up? When's your contract up? Like if Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, and somebody else did that, and they all decided when their contract was up and they should all join the same team that year. Like we haven't seen that yet.
I guess the closest was Solani and Korea, right? When they went to Colorado.
They took that 1 year. Well, no, you could also say Ryan Suter and Zach Parise. They both signed in Minnesota. It was sort of.
But that was multi-years, and yeah, you're right. I mean, I do think that they were in cahoots the whole time. I do really think that, but The 1 year deal is more like kind of what we're talking about, like the actual like, okay, we're gonna go in there and try to win, because that was Korea and Solani's attempt to win the Stanley Cup. You know, they were going in there to win a cup that year, and you know, Solani ended up winning it after that, right, back in Anaheim. So it's pretty funny how it works out. It's all the time we have for today, guys, but we appreciate everybody. Again, thanks for going to patreon.com/hockey and supporting the show. And we'll be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We'll talk to you then.